T minus 1 minute. T minus 50 seconds. T minus 40 seconds. T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Own it, own it, own it, Kong. I own it. It did.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet.
Hey, hey, hey! Welcome to Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. And of course, welcome to the SmackDown and Rampage Aftershow, which comes on every Friday after SmackDown and AEW Rampage. Of course, I'm your girl, Stephanie Hardy, host and writer of Women's Wrestling Talk, host and creator of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast, and color commentator for the Belladonna Division, Battle Club Pro, and Black Girl Magic 2 of 2022. I'm so happy to be with you here tonight to talk about everything that went on in wrestling tonight on SmackDown and Rampage. I know I would be here with my tag team partner, our editor-in-chief, Dreon Santana, but she attended Hard to Kill, which was the Impact Wrestling event that was taking place this Friday night, which of course main evented with Mickie James versus Jordynne Grace for the Impact Knockouts title, which means that if Mickie had to lose, then she would lose her career and have to retire. And of course, if Jordynne Grace, lost, she would lose her title. And I'm going to let you go on social media and watch all of that stuff just so you can, figure out what went on there. But of course, I'm more than sure we'll talk about it pretty soon. Someone will. But I had to handle the SmackDown and Rampage half of things. So of course, we're going to get into it. We're going to talk about everything SmackDown and Rampage related. Now, of course, as I'm talking about everything that happened tonight, please go through, watch the show, go through and comment on everything that you liked from each show on tonight as I talk about it. Like, it's pretty lit. Like, this episode of SmackDown and this episode of Rampage was pretty solid, had lots of great women's action and just lots of great storytelling all around. So yeah, it's been pretty cool. So moving into the SmackDown side of things, SmackDown started with the action. Of course, they started in Green Bay, Wisconsin, with the Intercontinental Championship match between Gunther of Imperium and Braun Strowman. And this, of course, feeds into their little rivalry that they've had going on, considering Ricochet was the last person to really qualify to face off against Imperium. Well, not Imperium, but face off against Gunther. But, him and Braun Strowman have basically been defending each other. So they set this match up for them to fight for the IC title. And it was pretty solid action here in the case of this picture. But I wanted to share this picture for a specific reason, because I just love this image of watching the both of them like tower and stare at each other as if, you know, they were both evenly matched. And it was really great here because usually you see Gunther or Braun Strowman fight people that really aren't on their level. They usually fight people who are like really like either small or beneath them or short or whatever. But in this case, they were very evenly matched in terms of their height. And of course, Samantha Irvin was ring announcing as wonderful as she knows how to ring announce all the time. And then you have Jessica Carr, who was the referee. And I definitely want to give a special shout out to Samantha Irvin because this week, of course, she got engaged to Ricochet. Her and Ricochet are set to get married. And it's amazing. So congratulations to these two crazy SmackDown kids. They are getting married. They love each other very much. Of course, we've seen them do coupley things on SmackDown before, including kiss on Christmas Eve. So it's really great to see that they are moving forward with their lives together in this way. So congratulations to the both of them, and I wish them nothing but happiness. Also, moving forward and talking about things that are very heartfelt, Braun Strowman was in the ring wearing these special boots because, of course, since they're in Green Bay, Wisconsin, he was wearing the colors for the Green Bay Packers, the NFL team. And they especially created these boots to pay tribute to a 6-year-old who to a 6-year-old young boy who was lost in the 2021 Waukesha Christmas parade attack. And the Green Bay Packers also tweeted out and said Braun Strowman teamed up with the Packers to create custom boots to honor a young fan who was a victim in the Waukesha Christmas parade tragedy. He'll wear these boots this Friday on SmackDown in Green Bay and auction them off to benefit those affected. And he wore those tonight. And this young man was indeed a 8-year-old fan of Braun Strowman and the Green Bay Packers. So here at Women's Wrestling Talk, we send our deepest condolences and sympathies to those families affected by that terrible tragedy. And I hope that the proceeds does go to all the families and it helps them to move forward in whatever it is that they need. But I thought this was a very touching tribute that they actually gave attention to before the match got started. But yeah, shout out to Braun Strowman and WWE for hooking up with the Green Bay Packers and paying tribute to those families and that little boy. Now, back to the action. This match was definitely a show of what happens when you have both people who are very powerful but don't necessarily like depend on all of that power. They were both basically, it's like Braun Strowman was, of course, utilizing all of his brute strength, but it's like where he sort of made up for with his brute strength. It was like Gunther basically made up for with his technical prowess because, of course, he's from Austria and he sort of represents that European strong style. So he was utilizing a lot of that. He was also utilizing the help of Imperium to interfere in the match, but Braun Strowman actually Braun Strowman and Gunther basically took a lot of the action outside of the ring and also slammed each other into the barricades and stuff like that. And when they got back into the ring, they were hitting each other with some of the best of their moves. And here in this picture, Braun Strowman couldn't believe after he hit one of his special moves that it went to that the count was 2 instead of 3. So there's that part of it. It was a very high stakes match, as you can tell. And this was where they took the action outside of the ring as well. So it was a really good match. A lot of people on Twitter even said they felt like this was Braun Strowman, probably one of the best matches of Braun Strowman's career. And he did do a phenomenal job in this match. But where it all kind of came down was where basically Gunther kept working on Braun Strowman's arm. He kept trying to injure it and injure his shoulder over and over again, and he kept targeting it throughout the match. And he even had a submission on the top rope when he was doing that. And so basically he hit a power bomb on him for the victory. And he hit a power bomb and then he covered him like this for the victory. And so Gunther is still the Intercontinental Champion. Much to the chagrin of, well, actually a lot of people were really happy with the idea that he still won, but I'm sure someone was still, unhappy at the idea that he is still the champion as well. But weirdly enough, as he was celebrating, you really didn't see both members of Gunther anywhere. They were kind of, absent. But either way, he was celebrating his win. So Gunther is still the Intercontinental Champion. But Braun Strowman did a really good job. So moving forward with the rest of the show, we have this backstage segment where we see Sami Zayn, of course, walking backstage to go to the locker room where the Bloodline are, that he thinks the Bloodline are at. And so he knocks on the door and out comes Papa Paul Heyman. And he says hello to him and they exchange pleasantries. And at this point, Sammy's like, look, I need to talk to the Usos and Solo about strategy heading into my match with Kevin Owens. So Paul basically said to him, like, okay, well, they're actually not in there. It's just you, because this is a bloodline sort of testing you to see if you can take out Kevin Owens once and for all, on your own and by yourself, so you can curry more favor with the tribal chief Roman Reigns, the champion. And so this kind of freaked Sami Zayn out a little bit, but he was more than willing to prove himself to the bloodline with this. And so after he said what he said and after he was gassed up and everything, Paul Heyman basically, rooted him on and told him, go get him and all that. But weirdly enough, after Sami Zayn walked away, Paul Heyman had this look on his face that looked like he was disgusted with Sami. And this bothered me. Okay? Like, literally, this bothered me because, sir, how you gonna be sitting there eating popcorn with him like yesterday? Well, not yesterday, but last week on SmackDown, and pretend like everything's okay. But it's just like you root him on in the back of, in backstage segment and whatever. But then as soon as Sami walks away, you're just staring at him like he's the scum of the earth. Oh my God, I was just so mad about this. But either way, I think this is really interesting with how this is turning out. Papa Paul is really showing the bloodline's intentions, and it's really sad and you hate to see it. But of course, on the bottom of the screen they kept advertising the fact that Kevin and Sami were fighting that night, so tonight. So this was a very interesting turn of events. But moving forward, we get out here and we see Rey Mysterio come out, dressed in jeans and a long sleeves t-shirt with his face and, his name on it, and this beautiful mask that he had on. I really liked it. It looked like it came from like a comic book or something. And I just really thought that the coloring was really pretty for it. So he came out and addressed the WWE Universe and said that he was really getting sick and tired of the antics of his son, especially around the holidays involving Thanksgiving and Christmas. Now, as you may or may not know, if you've, unless, of course, you've been living under a rock or something, Rey Mysterio has dealt with 2 attacks from Dominic and Rhea Ripley on Thanksgiving and Christmas. And they've come to his house and also his grandfather's house in order to antagonize Rey Mysterio because they think they're just supposed to come over and have, family dinners or whatnot. And they always get into some type of fight. And of course, since the last time Dominic started to mess with his family, he wound up going to jail and he's out here pretending like he's a whole thug out here. This was him on Raw this past Monday. And yes, I was there in Birmingham, Alabama. Shout out to the 205. They rolled through and this is how he looked. So Rey Mysterio basically talked about how he's just disgusted with him, acting like he's a thug. And he says that he's tired of his BS. And in fact, he said BS so strong and so hard that it knocked the camera out of focus and they bleeped it out. And everybody in the crowd in Green Bay was like, oh, he really said that. Yeah, Rey is tired. But he went on to say that since he came on SmackDown for a new start, he declared himself for the Royal Rumble. And I thought it was funny how he was saying that he was a thug, but then Public Enemies podcast, shout out to them, said that Rey Mysterio and Dominic aren't so different after all, because of course they were alluding to the time where in WCW Rey Mysterio was maskless and he was dressed up as a little bit of a thug too. But I will say this: when Rey Mysterio was dressed like a thug, and I look back on those old WCW tapes, I thought he was fine. Rey Mysterio, he is a good looking man underneath that mask. So yeah, that was hot. But either way, they're both kind of going down, a weird path, or at least he went down that weird path, and now Dominic seems to be. But Ray, I guess, just didn't want him to make the same mistakes. But shout out to Public Enemies for pointing that out. I think that was really funny, and their posts are really funny. So please give them a follow if you already haven't. But either way, Rey Mysterio announced that he will be in the Royal Rumble match, of course, which is full of 30 men. And these are the men who have announced that they're or won matches that would put them into the Royal Rumble so far. And Rey Mysterio is now in it. And Joseph, thank you for watching. He said, I thought Rey cursed when my feed went out. I was thinking for 2 seconds, why did the feed go out? Yeah, Joseph, he did curse. He really did curse. And it was, and my feed went out too. So you weren't going crazy. That was me too. So after he made that announcement, he gets interrupted by Mr. Karrion Kross and, of course, Miss Scarlett. And Scarlett's outfit was so cute. She came out there looking like $1,000,000 with her sparkly suit jacket thing. I was just like, girl, this is cute. Let me know where you got it from. And I wasn't sure exactly what Karrion Kross was trying to, be out here wearing. He looked like a shady politician, low key. It was weird. But other people said he looked like he was giving Constantine, which is of course a movie involving some pretty otherworldly stuff with Keanu Reeves. I'm more than sure a number of you may have seen this movie. I've never seen it. I just know Keanu Reeves is in it. But either way, that's what a lot of people said he was giving. But Karrion Kross, of course, has been going on this tirade for the past couple of weeks. And he's been gunning for Rey Mysterio because he feels like Rey is just past his prime when it comes to wrestling. And so since Rey doesn't seem to want to give up, he's going to make him give up. So, of course, Rey alluded when he announced that he was going to be in the Royal Rumble this year. He alluded to his victory in the Royal Rumble match 17 years ago, which makes me feel, number one, really old. And number two, this is just really crazy. He really did win the Royal Rumble 17 years ago. And Karrion Kross mentioned this and basically said, but the difference is that this time, it's pretty interesting how you won the Royal Rumble back then, but you were not able to be there for your son and be present for him. And now look at the choices that he's making. And I thought this was probably the best and the most vicious that Karrion Kross has sounded against Rey since he came up to SmackDown. I was just like, sir, this is real disrespectful. How dare you come for him and his fatherhood skills? It was just so bad, but he really was, roasting him. Karrion even told him, says, you need goals or else I'm not sure how you would peel your old ass out of bed. And then he also said, who do you hate more, your son or yourself, for failing to raise Dominic to be just like you? And he says that he had been waiting over 10 years to get him. And it was just so creepy and just really scary. But at the same time, it was also very disrespectful because he was saying that, you've never been there for your son. You were off winning championships and winning matches and stuff like that. And because now you're in the Royal Rumble, this doesn't matter, you suck, and all this other stuff. But the thing that I feel like they're failing, or at least probably not mentioning, is the fact that when it came to Rey Mysterio winning this Royal Rumble, it was still really special in the sense that he won it in honor of Eddie Guerrero, who had passed away the year before. And he won that in his honor. And it's just, and then he also went on to win the World Heavyweight title that year at WrestleMania 22. And I feel like Karrion and them not mentioning that was just interesting to me. But I guess they don't want to really talk about it. But at the same time, it's just like you're saying that. But at the same time, Dominic was really close to Eddie, just as much as Ray was close to Eddie too. But I guess if he had done that, then maybe people felt like he would have been doing too much. But either way, after he cut the promo on him, he proceeded to choke Rey Mysterio out and attack him while Scarlett held up a card, and he just proceeded to choke him out a whole lot. And it was just really, really rough. So now this is of course leading to them having a match next week on SmackDown, and I'm definitely looking forward to it because I just want to see how this is going to unfold here. Like, I'm really interested in seeing that. Also, hey JD in the comments, thank you for watching. Joseph also says Karrion Kross hasn't done anything for me since he came back. He is blah. i I felt like he only came back because WWE is the only place that would let him have Scarlett with him. I don't know about that. I really don't know because I can't imagine anywhere else not letting him have Scarlett with him outside of WWE. Because of course, when he did come up to the main roster the first time, he didn't have Scarlett, but of course that was under a different regime. Now we're in the Triple H creative side of things, and he is able to have Scarlett. But either way, a lot of people do feel a little bit on the outs with Karrion Kross, but I actually have been enjoying this story a little bit because it's just showing that he's just really being rough with him outside of the realms of the world title, and then it's just showing him, having beef with someone who is well established in Rey Mysterio. So I actually do like this um feud. I think it's cool to sort of, beef up everything for the Royal Rumble. So I think it's cool. JD said his shredder phase. Yeah. So yeah, I actually like this. So I'm just ready for Ray to get back at Karrion Kross. And also, I'm also willing to bet that at WrestleMania, him and Dominic might have to really fight. And I feel like that would be really cool too. But moving forward with the rest of SmackDown, we go backstage and we see Liv Morgan in the locker room, getting her stuff together. And Emma and Maxine Dupree, who we haven't seen on television in a while, since LA Knight, left the Maximum Male Models, basically walked up to her and talked about, and told Liv that they felt like it wasn't a good idea for her to name herself as the number one entry in the Women's Royal Rumble. And they weren't sure how long she was going to last. But Liv basically said, like, I believe in myself. This is going to be okay. Don't underestimate me. And in the midst of all of this, Raquel Rodriguez walks up to her and says that the Royal Rumble was made for someone like her who is stronger and, not as small as Liv, and she will actually last longer in the match and probably go on to win. But because Liv didn't take too kindly to this, Liv slapped the fire out of her. I mean, slap the taste out of her mouth. Pow! And challenged her to a match tonight to see who's really the baddest. And Raquel didn't, take too kindly to it. And she walked up to her, said something to her in Spanish, and said, "Girl, you're on." And so they went on to have their match. And we'll talk about this a little bit later. But in the comments, Joseph is saying, Liv seems to be the female Rey Mysterio. Can she go coast to coast? I'm surprised we are 2 weeks out and no women's matches are booked. Here's the thing, Joseph. Even though there aren't any women's matches besides the Women's Royal Rumble that's been booked, I'm more than sure that Bianca Belair versus Alexa Bliss could be booked. Simply because at this Raw, which I did attend, Alexa Bliss had stuff to say that was mad disrespectful towards Bianca, and she called herself the face of evil before Uncle Howdy came out. So honestly, I feel like that might be, the direction that they're going to go into. And then of course, later on in the show, we're going to get to Charlotte and all of that. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do for the women's matches in the Royal Rumble. I guess we just have to wait and see. But JD is also saying she lasted longer in the Rumble than Liv's whole title run. Jesus Christ. Oh, the shade. But they did say on commentary during their match that Liv wound up lasting really long last year. So who knows how she might do. A lot of people feel like that they're really going with Liv to possibly win it. But I have another theory. um as to who I think could win it, but I don't know if it might be a little bit too much for people. I don't know. But yeah, this segment was really hot. I thought it was cool. So yeah, this was just very imposing, and I really like these two having a stare off against each other. And it really shows that Liv really ain't scared of nobody out here. Um JD, no, don't make me say I'm scared if I say it, I'll just sound like a weird broken record, just, waiting for someone to come back. But honestly, I feel like if the Royal Rumble could come down to someone, it could come down to either three people: Liv, Rhea Ripley, or a returning Trinity/Naomi. That's who I really think could win. And I would definitely gun for Naomi simply because Naomi gave Charlotte one of the best matches that they ever had, in terms of SmackDown in their women's division. Before, of course, Naomi went on to win the tag titles and everything happened this past summer. So I feel like if Naomi came back and actually won the Rumble, that would be really cool. But you just never know because, of course, no one, she hasn't said anything about her status. No one really knows at this point. But I just feel like that would be cool. But if it's not her, then I think it would probably be Rhea or maybe Liv. I don't know. Or it could be Raquel, because Raquel did give a really great performance in her match against Ronda Rousey last week. She did really good. Well, not last week, but 2 weeks ago. Yeah. Time is getting away. Yeah. But then JD also says Rhea and Charlotte have that history though. They do, because when Charlotte won the Royal Rumble a few years back in 2020, yeah, she challenged Rhea for that NXT title and she took it. She did. You're absolutely right. They do have that history. But you just never know. You never know. But who's to say that Rhea wouldn't want to challenge Bianca? Hmm. I don't know. There's just a lot going on. But Rumble season is always fun. But either way, we went to another women's match, which was Tegan Nox versus Xia Li. Now, this is interesting to me because Xia Li, of course, was the woman who attacked Tegan Nox a few weeks ago, but it doesn't seem like they really had a follow through with that story that much, because Xia didn't necessarily list the reason as to why she attacked Tegan Nox outside of saying that she didn't want anybody to jump in her place in line. But my thing is, what have you done to really solidify yourself as a credible threat to anyone holding a title, Xia? Like, no shade to you because I love you, but ma'am, what? Like, how can you worry about women skipping you in line when you might not necessarily be in line yourself? I don't know. But there's another moment here that kind of turned my head a little bit as a woman of color and a black woman. It was Xia Li coming out here in these braids, and it's not that they didn't look good on her, they did, but as a black woman, it just feels weird to see people outside of your culture wearing things that don't necessarily fit with you. It feels almost like you're wearing it as a costume or like you're appropriating our hair. And that just feels weird. And I didn't necessarily like that. But outside of that part, the match was pretty good for the most part. But Tegan Nox wound up winning with the Shining Wizard. It was pretty active for the most part, but I do kind of wish it was a little bit longer. But outside of that, Tegan Nox got a much needed win here, and I'm not mad about it. So yeah, in the comments, Himanshun Gaur, thank you for watching. Please forgive me if I mispronounced any of your name. I'm sorry. I didn't like the fact that they had these two face each other. They spent a year making Liv a big baby face, but that's going nowhere. You could say that because Liv being extreme and acting like that and acting out in that, masochistic way since she lost the SmackDown Women's title to Ronda Rousey really didn't necessarily have a clear direction. But in this match, the match that they did have against each other, with Liv and Raquel, it did show a little bit, but I guess we just have to wait and see. But either way, Tegan Nox wound up winning this match, and I thought it was really cool. So yeah, I hope that Xia Li gets some more direction because she's really talented, and I almost wish they would turn her back face or something, or just give her something new to do. Cause I don't know if I necessarily like her being heel either. But Zaya ran the last gauntlet though. She had 2 eliminations. I don't remember right now. I really don't remember. Charge it to my head, not to my heart. It's not that I don't want to. It's just the fact that so much has gone on since then that I just can't remember right now. But yeah, we just want better for Xia Li. And also not those braids. But after that, we got a little bit of a promo from the Viking Raiders and Valhalla. Now, of course, the Viking Raiders, they did show the Viking Raiders attacking Drew McIntyre and Sheamus after their match for the tag titles against the Usos last week. They attacked them in a digital exclusive and basically said that the reason why they attacked them was because the gods spoke to Valhalla. And Valhalla, basically told the Viking Raiders that destruction is coming their way and that they are the ones that are supposed to be destined to be the tag team champions. So this was interesting to say the least, considering someone that I know on a very popular podcast had some things to say about Valhalla. So I thought it was really interesting that she showed up this night tonight. But either way, Valhalla is the speaker of the gods. So yeah. This is really working for her. It really is working for her. I think this is cool. But after they saw that, Drew and Sheamus were ready to fight the Usos, but as Drew was ready to fight the Usos, Sheamus had to calm him down and let him know, like, bro, you need to calm down. We need to focus and actually come up with a plan. But Adam Pearce told them that you will get your hands on the Usos because, of course, and also get your hands on the Viking Raiders because next week I'm starting a tag team tournament to see who will face off against the Usos for the SmackDown tag team titles. And I thought this was an interesting development because on Raw, they had a tag team gauntlet match to see who was going to face off against the Usos for the Raw tag team titles. So it seems that now they're preparing to separate the titles on in terms of the tag team divisions. And I'm wondering what this means for Roman. Like, does this mean he also has to prepare to lose, both of his titles to 2 different, people? Like, what does this mean now? But either way, when it comes to the tag team division, they are, separating the titles now, and the Usos have to fight everybody. The Usos have to worry about fighting the Judgment Day and now the Banger Bros, which feels a little weird to say, but that's the name of them. So they're ready for that. They're game for it, and it's cool. And they also kept slapping Adam Pearce in the back, which he didn't necessarily like. But, he used to be a wrestler, so he should be okay with it. But yeah, moving forward with the rest of the show, Bray Wyatt had an advertisement with a QR code that came on. And if you flash the QR code up, you saw this image of the Fiend. So yeah, that's why this is up here. So as he came out and cut a promo, he basically said that that when it came to the darkness that was inside of him, he should have just let it, take over. And he was also saying that he was Uncle Howdy, that he was the eater of worlds, that he is all of these people. And he sent a warning to LA Knight telling him that he's going to revel in who he is, and that in the pitch black match at the Royal Rumble, you need to prepare to run, which is what he used to say when he was when he was old Bray Wyatt. And then he said, Green Bay, we're here. Like, it just feels like Bray Wyatt has a little bit of a personality disorder. I'm not a psychologist. I'm only a person who reads certain things. And it just feels like this low-key feels like a personality disorder to me. He just feels like he just has a lot going on. He basically said sometimes all it takes is a little push in the right direction to remind you who you really are. I am the color red in a world of black and white. I am the eater of worlds. I am Uncle Howdy. I am him. I know who I am, but who are you? Well, Bray, all I know is that I'm Stephanie and you're freaking me out. It's like, I saw you Monday and now you're saying you're Uncle Howdy, you're all of these people. And it's just, are we just going to get an amalgamation of every piece of him now? It's just really, really insane. But he said that when the lights go out at the Royal Rumble, that LA Knight should run. So I guess LA should just run and head for the hills, man. Just run and head for the hills. Himanshu Gar is saying Bray is really interesting as always, but I just can't go against LA Knight. Yeah, I love LA Knight too, and he is very promising. But how promising can he be against someone who has 10 different personalities living within him? And then he has to fight him possibly in the dark too at the Royal Rumble. It's not looking too good for him. It's not looking too good for LA. It's just not. It's just not. It's just not looking too good. But I really do love this character work from him. It seems like they're really allowing him room to cook. I like it a lot. But moving forward with the rest of the show, Kayla Braxton, shout out Big Bama, and who's also on my Alabama wrestling t-shirt. Go on foryourwear.com/Hardy Wrestling Podcast to buy you a hoodie or a t-shirt to represent Alabama wrestling legends like Kayla Braxton. Basically, she had an interview with Kevin Owens, but before he really even got started talking, Sami Zayn popped up. And I'm just like, bruh, so Kevin Owens lives in your head rent-free. Why are you coming up in his segment? But he walked up to him and basically, shouted at him, and Zayn asked him, are you happy? Are you happy that now we have to fight each other? Like, are you happy that now you're ruining things, and ruining my chances with the bloodline? Like, what is wrong with you? And all this other stuff. And he said, Kevin Owens said Roman Reigns is the one putting you in this position and using you so he never has to come to work. And it basically felt like an argument between two friends. This felt like an argument that you have with your best friend when you know that the person that they're dating is not good for them. This is exactly what this felt like. Like, seriously, this is what this felt like. This really felt like when you see your best friend and or your sibling making a huge mistake with their life and you're trying to tell them, this is wrong, you need to get your stuff together and stop acting this way. And Sami just wasn't hearing it. He was just like, how many times does Roman have to hug me for you to understand that I'm a part of the bloodline? How many times do the Usos have to dap me up, and give me t-shirts for you to understand that I am a part of them now? And Kevin just sees right through all of it. He's just like, bruh, like, I see how they're doing you and it's not right. But Sami doesn't want to hear it. He just wants to live in delusion land, and just, stay on the island of relevancy for as long as he possibly can. And it's so sad. But it gets even sadder, as we continue with the rest of the show. But in the comments, Joseph is saying, I guess this is Bray's character work rocks. It seems like the Fiend could be out to play at the Royal Rumble. You never know. It could be. Are we going to get him or are we going to get Uncle Howdy? Who knows? Also, Joseph says, Kayla seems short next to Sami and KO in these interviews. Yeah, I think Kayla is just essentially really short. But no matter how short she is Big Bama all day long. Alabama 205. Let's go. But moving forward, we moved into this more women's match, because this is women's wrestling talk, with Liv Morgan, of course, posing in the ring, going up. I thought I had more pictures. Going up against Raquel Gonzalez. And I could have swore Raquel Rodriguez. And I could have swore I had more pictures of this. I am so sorry, but I'm going to make myself big. This match was really good. I liked it. They were fighting in and out of the ring, of course, and beating each other. And of course, Liv Morgan was, being really quick, but Raquel was also being really powerful. They were even fighting outside of the ring. Liv Morgan tried to pull out a table to try to smash Raquel through it, but Raquel fought out of it. And Raquel actually wound up winning the match with her not Chingona bomb, because they made her change it. The Tahana Bomb. She wound up winning. And a lot of people online did not like the fact that she won because they felt like Liv really was showing more of her extreme side in this match and the crowd was really behind her. So for her to go backstage, of course, and challenge Raquel and slap her and be as bold as to do that, and then go extreme and be, all crazy and loving pain like she was throughout this entire match, only to lose to Raquel was just a little bit weird. But I will say this though. Raquel winning kind of makes sense in the sense that Raquel did have a really great showing against Ronda Rousey a few weeks ago before the end of the year. And she did really good in that match. So I guess maybe she's getting a little bit of momentum now outside of, Liv getting the thing. Because maybe, I don't know, maybe a part of me really feels there's half of me that sees it for Liv Morgan, and I love Liv Morgan, but then there's this other half of me that maybe feels like maybe Liv's time has passed to try to qualify as a contender for the title. Maybe it's someone else's turn. I don't know. But either way, I could have swore I had more pictures of this match. I am so sorry, guys. But either way, Raquel wound up winning, but Liv still looked cute. So we're just going to show it again. Yeah. Moving forward, we had Gunther going backstage and getting his neck iced down. And of course, Kayla's backstage getting the scoop. And Gunther announced that he is going to be in the Royal Rumble as well. So as the weeks go on, the Royal Rumble continues to fill up and gets really, fascinating. Joseph is saying that the women's match between Liv and Raquel it's okay. It was a great match. It showed that Liv and Raquel are ready for the Rumble. Yes, it did, because Liv was knocking Raquel out of the ring, back and forth a lot, and I thought that was really cool. But yeah, I just really wish I could have swore I downloaded more pictures, but you all know technology, it's stupid. But actually no, the pictures were out of order. There we go. Bloopers, women's wrestling talk bloopers. Yeah, there's this pose, of course, Raquel, and then this is where Raquel hit the chingona bomb onto Liv, and this was the pin. And a lot of people online were saying that this pin reminded them of Rhea Ripley's pin that she would do on people smaller than her. And yeah, it was pretty interesting. But either way, Raquel wound up winning and she was posing. So yeah, congrats to her. Sorry, I guess I lied to you guys, but whatever. Um Moving forward, we also heard from Miss Sonya Deville, who was giving Adam Pearce the third degree over how come she can't get another rematch against Charlotte, even though she tried her best and she beat her, even though she was a fresh opponent and stuff like that. But Adam Pearce wasn't hearing it, and she basically was able to predict that maybe Adam Pearce was going to tell her to get to the back of the line, and be all like, well, you're going to tell me to get to the back of the line and just, qualify for the Royal Rumble so I can get another opportunity at the title that way. And she was like, look, I'm going to find a way to get into the title picture one way or another. And this irritated me because I'm just like, Sonya, this is the same thing people used to do to you. Or at least Naomi used to do to you. Whenever she was always begging to put you in a match or something like that. But you wouldn't give her the time of day. And now that Adam Pearce is giving you that same energy, you can't handle it. And it's so funny that she's acting like she's entitled to another chance when, ma'am, you called your shot and you lost, just like Adam Pearce said, unlike Charlotte, who called her shot and won. So it's just like Sonya is just acting like a petulant child, and it was just getting on my nerves. And I was just like, Sonya, girl, it's not all about you. Why don't you go, do something else? Like maybe be the new leader of Toxic Attraction on NXT. I don't know. Do something cool like that instead of trying to, shoehorn your way into the title picture against Charlotte. And then it gets much, much worse. Joseph said Sonya Deville is a child that Adam Pearce is forcing her to enter the Rumble. Whatever. Either way, it doesn't matter. Because Sonya decided to attack Charlotte backstage and they got to fighting. I stepped out of the room for maybe a few seconds and then they started fighting backstage and I saw Charlotte, and I wasn't expecting to see Charlotte tonight because she really didn't show up all that much. But this is where she showed up and she had on this beautiful pink outfit and people were comparing her to the Pink Power Ranger. But honestly, The Pink Power Ranger was my favorite. I dressed up as a Pink Power Ranger in kindergarten, and that was like the cutest outfit. So you know what? If Charlotte looked like a Pink Power Ranger, then that's fine, because she kicked ass like one. So her and Sonya really beat each other up backstage. All the referees, all the Kingsmen had to break them up from fighting each other, but Sonya kept jumping up and fighting her, and jumping up on top of the boxes and fighting her and everything. So it's safe to say that this is far from over, and Sonya is just gonna keep, gunning for Charlotte until she gets her, opportunity at the title again. Yeah. LOL, that awful image of Charlotte. Whatever. She was in the middle of a fight. I don't think she's obligated to look cute because of that. So let's move on. Yeah, so after that fight, we had Cody Rhodes. Of course, they showed the promo, well, not the promo, but they showed the segment of Cody Rhodes, in his road to recovery, after his injury at that he sustained while he was training for Hell in a Cell. And they showed the same segment on Raw Live, in Birmingham. And when me and my boyfriend were watching it, I love how they basically, made reference to the fact that Cody Rhodes went to the hospital and got surgery on his injured boob in Birmingham, because of course whenever the wrestlers, and also when Stephanie McMahon got her surgery today, whenever anyone in wrestling gets hurt or injured in any way, shape, or form, they bring them to the Andrews Sports Medicine Hospital wing of St. Vincent's Hospital in Birmingham, and we fix them. We fixed Triple H when he tore his quad years ago. When he came back and bounced back, he got that surgery from Dr. Andrews. He's retired now, but that whole sports medicine wing is named after him due to the fact that he was famous for fixing all types of athletes when it came to surgery. And of course, it's named after him, and they're continuing the mission of helping anybody, or any athlete in that situation, whether they be wrestlers, football players, soccer players, and all the above. We help rehab them to get them back to their selves. So, yeah. Cody Rhodes is on his way back. And also in this segment, it was the first time we really saw Brandy on, WWE proper television in a minute. And I thought this was really refreshing because, of course, she's going to be by his side, because that's what beautiful, amazing wives do. So shout out to Brandy for being supportive of her man on his road to recovery. And I really do feel like Cody might come back and win the Rumble this year. I just feel like this might be his time to do that amazing thing. So yeah, big ups to Cody, and big ups to Birmingham for always being the city that heals wrestlers. Yeah. So they made announcements for SmackDown next week, and they announced that Kevin Owens and Roman Reigns will be having the undisputed WWE Universal Championship contract signing for their match at the Royal Rumble next week. And I'm really excited about that because that's going to be intense. And I hope they cut each other to death in the promos. It's going to be great. And then, of course, we have Rey Mysterio versus Karrion Kross, which is taking place 2 weeks away from now. I hate that we have to wait 2 weeks from now, but either way, I feel like it'll still be interesting. I'm ready to see it. And then I'm almost scared that maybe the Judgment Day might still find a way to interfere. I don't know. I just have that thought in my head, but either way, I'm really excited about this match. So moving to our main event, we have Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn. The two wrestling soulmates, the two people who can fight forever. They're one true persons fighting each other. I remember the first time I saw them fight each other, I just felt like I watched a house burn down in a good way. And I'm not saying that that's, a funny thing, because I know that's a tragic thing, but that's just how I felt after I watched. I was just like, man, they really, really, really destroyed each other. It was crazy. But of course, I had to share this picture that someone shared online of them, back in the day in the Indies as Kevin Steen and El Generico. I had to share that because this is just how far this rivalry goes and their friendship goes. So I just want to put this out there because I just felt like this was just really, really precious. Okay. That's how far back this rivalry and their friendship goes. And that's why they love each other and care for each other. Maybe. But yeah, this is it. And I just thought this was nice. So they tore each other up in this match. It had a little bit of a weird start, but once they got it cracking, they got it cracking. And Kevin Owens tore up somebody's sign that said "feeling oozy," like he ripped it up into shreds, and then he walked up to Sami. He was like, "You feeling oozy, Sami? You're feeling oozy?" And he grabbed him by the beard. Like in this picture, just proceeded to rail on him. There was another point in this match where, of course, they were fighting each other and punching each other back and forth like they love to do in almost all of their matches. Like, this is the one spot that they love to repeat and do, and I have no problems with that. And then, of course, Kevin Owens was flying high with a splash here. Like, they were just killing each other. And then, of course, Sami Zayn did one of his patented suplexes, which just looked awesome. Like, it was just an amazing match. But guess what? Since Sami Zayn is attached to the Bloodline, they interfered. And of course, this led to a DQ, which made me upset. And I love the Bloodline. I know historically I've talked on this show about how much I love the Bloodline and stuff like that, and how much I love Roman individually and love the Usos individually and Solo, whatever. But this made me upset because I wanted them to fight to a definitive finish. But they did it, and the Usos interrupted, and they said the reason why they came out there and interrupted was because I guess the tribal chief told them to. And they were basically telling him telling Sami that he did a good job, but they just came out there to finish the job and just stomp on, Kevin Owens. And Sami looked really surprised at this, but it looked like his face gradually went from being surprised to disappointed. And it was really interesting to watch his body language sort of change as the Usos were even bigging him up and telling him, "Oh, you did a good job. You did a good job, Us. You did good." And even while he was dapping him up, he didn't have the same energy when he was dapping up Jimmy this time. He was sad because this was something that he really wanted to do for himself. He really wanted to prove to the Bloodline that he could do it on his own without their help. But they basically took that opportunity away from him, and he looked really dejected. It was almost like when a kid gets some ice cream from the ice cream truck and then it melts and it hits the ground. That's kind of how Sami Zayn felt. His Bloodline ice cream melted and hit the ground. He was very sad. So them and Solo Sikoa proceeded to beat up Kevin Owens, even though he did try to fight back. They laid him on the table, and then Solo Sikoa hit him with the Samoan spike, and then he smashed himself through the table onto Kevin. And of course, this is how they ended, but notably, Sami was the last one to put his one up. And that's how SmackDown ended. And I think this is just the best layering of storytelling that's going on. And it's amazing how the Bloodline and Roman and the Usos have been able to keep this trajectory going with their storytelling and with their wrestling since the pandemic, since the Thunderdome era. They've really kept us in a chokehold. And this is 2023 and they're still doing it. They're adding more players and doing cool things, and the story just keeps getting better and better. But my biggest fear, not my biggest fear, but I'm just wondering, like, with the way that Paul Heyman was looking at Sami Zayn earlier and the way that Sami was looking now, it's just showing and proving that the cracks are there. Like, the cracks are there. Like, it's like the Encanto house when it was cracking up. Like, the cracks are there. But like I said, that's how SmackDown ended. All in all, I really enjoyed this episode. It was pretty cool. I loved it. And then, of course, coming up to Royal Rumble season, and which triggers off WrestleMania, it's just really cool. Joseph is saying Roman is scared of Kevin Owens. He also says Roman doesn't want a third fight with Kevin Owens. The contract signing in Detroit next week will be fun. Absolutely. And he said, all in all, I thought SmackDown was great. I rated 7 out of 10. But I feel like if it was great, you should rate it a little bit higher, like maybe an 8 or 8.5 or a 9. I don't know. But either way, this episode was great. So, moving forward into the Rampage side of things, of course, AEW Rampage took place in the Kia Forum in Los Angeles, California, which is another one of my favorite cities outside of the crazy traffic. This episode of Rampage started with the TNT Championship match, with Darby Allin challenging Juice Robinson. Now, Juice Robinson made his debut on this past episode of Dynamite this past Wednesday, and that was really my first time ever seeing him. I had really never seen him before, so I was just like, okay, Juice Robinson, hello, nice to meet you. He was pretty impressive in this match. I actually liked it. There was just lots of great action here. Within this match, you had Darby Allin, of course, utilizing a lot of his quickness in the match, but then you also had Juice utilizing his size, of course, to bully Darby and throw him around a bit and ground and pound him and stuff like that. And it was just really interesting, and he was very dominant throughout, the first half of the match. But then he also used the barricade and the steel steps to inflict legal damage to him and then threw him back in the ring and stuff. But Darby Allin wound up winning the match by countering a suplex into a scorpion death drop before hitting the coffin drop for the win. And he also hit that really impressive code red again, too. So Darby Allin is still the TNT champion. And the person who came out to celebrate him was, of course, Sting, because him and Sting have of course, ironed out their differences. And they did mention on commentary that Darby and Sting will be tag teaming with the Great Muta in his farewell match in Japan pretty soon. So this was a nice little showing for them. I thought this was really cool. This was a really good match. I thought it was amazing. So also, after this match, we heard a word from Powerhouse Hobbs, and he basically said that Oh yeah, JD, you didn't come in on that part. Yeah, I am pulling double duty with both SmackDown and Rampage because Drian Santana, our fabulous editor in chief, went to Hard to Kill. She went to Impact's Hard to Kill. So yeah, she went with Nikki, our senior writer. So that's the reason why I'm doing it tonight on my own. But it's okay. I got it. So yeah, like I said, we heard from Powerhouse Hobbs, who said, in the Book of Hobbs, they say that a phoenix rises from the ashes. But I actually took that phoenix and ripped his wings off and threw it down and used those ashes to start some fires. And he basically said that he's just gonna run through the entire division with those ashes. And that was pretty much it. I feel like with the way that Powerhouse Hobbs is carrying around this book, that they should sell copies of it and just put little verses in them. Kind of the same way which is kind of the same idea I have if you watch the show P Valley on Stars, where Uncle Clifford has all of her rules or their rules, because they're non-binary, their rules. They should put their rules in a book too. So either way, I just think that would be really interesting. So yeah, Powerhouse Hobbs is out here. We heard from the Acclaimed, and they basically came out and said that they were they didn't just come out on their own. They were introduced by Renee Paquette, and she said that basically they were going to do their peace signs into some concrete that they were going to put in front of the Chinese theater, of course, in Los Angeles. And they came out and did one of their famous raps, which of course made reference to a number of things, including the WWE selling scandal that broke loose all over Twitter and stuff like that. So yeah, they made reference to all of that while also saying that they were happy to be in Los Angeles, and that they basically and that Los Angeles is basically the mecca of entertainment, and that they're happy to represent AEW, which is the mecca of wrestling, as the tag team champions. But before they were able to stick their fingers into the concrete, they were interrupted by the Gun Club, aka the Gun Bros. And what made me upset about this was just the fact that the Gun Club, they were talking so much stuff about how they feel like they're stars. But my thing is, you guys talk about how you guys are stars, but yet you guys came out here dressed up in regular tennis shoes and gray sweatpants. And you're talking about how you guys are bigger stars than the Acclaimed? Y'all just mad that they took your dad. That's literally all that is. Y'all are just upset for that. But the Acclaim said, well, okay, since you think that you're, a bigger star, why don't you go and, put your hands on the concrete and see what happens? So as they bent over to put their hands on the concrete, the Acclaim snatched those gray sweatpants off and revealed that the Gunn brothers wear briefs. Fruit of the Loom briefs at that. I thought this was funny because I just really feel like briefs are like male panties. And no shame to those who do wear briefs, but I literally feel like those are just male panties. And to keep from calling them panties, they just call them briefs. And I'm just like, bro, like, stop it. But I like boxers. I like boxers, but I thought this was funny. They were covering up their junk after it happened, and the Acclaim were just being goofy and laughing at them. So this was pretty funny. And also I would just like to say that I think it's amazing how over the Acclaimed are because of the fact that in the crowd at the Kia Forum, they had so many scissors out. So many people had their hands up, but then they also had so many fans. They had like paper scissors, what they were cutting. They were like giant ones, little ones, and stuff like that. And I think that's amazing and a testament to how much work that they've put forth into themselves as a tag team and as the tag team champions now. And I think they're really funny. I feel like a lot of people, kind of come down on them, and even sometimes my co-host Drian does come down on them, but I really do. I feel like they're really growing on me as a tag team. I think I like them. They're funny. They are hilarious. Now, Joseph said this was a great match. Wished it was on Dynamite, as more people watch Dynamite than Rampage. That's true. That's true. Joseph, LOL, funny story. They had to do this segment twice as Max messed up the rep and they had to start all over again. Oh, wow. That's interesting. I thought maybe they were like one take people, but at least they bounced back and had to do and just did it again. I'm sure they were good sports about it. Joseph, were you there? Tell me if you were there in the crowd when that happened, because I know a number of people, including some of our hosts, like Alicia, I believe she was there too. Like a lot of people did go to that show. But yeah, LA is great. And I also hated how the Gun Club was dissing. The Gunn brothers were dissing Los Angeles. You don't diss Los Angeles. Los Angeles is amazing outside of their traffic. They're really great. You don't diss them and then say that it's a junk town. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, it's not a junk town. If anything, it's a very rich town, especially if you go on the Beverly Hills part. That looks very expensive. So, you're not going to talk down on Los Angeles like that. Stop it. You're going to talk down on Los Angeles like that. But I'm more than sure you're going to hang out there when it comes to WrestleMania weekend. Will it be trash then? Will it? Haha. But the comments are going crazy. Hello, Berry Monkey. Thank you for watching. Astrid is watching. Hey, Astrid. It's nice to see you. I'm so glad you're, watching with us. Yeah, like it's really cool. Joseph, okay, no, he wasn't there. Fans who were at the show were saying that Max apologized to the crowd for messing up. Usually with Rampage, everything looks to be in one cut, but who knows? Okay, well, that's fine. Maybe one day you will go to an AEW show. Who knows? Maybe I will. I don't know. We'll see. But moving forward, with the rest of the show, we had a tag team match with Eddie Kingston and Ortiz versus the Kings of the Black Throne. I think that's an amazing name for them. I think they should keep that, even though I know ultimately they're a House of Black, but the Kings of the Black Throne just sounds like some Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon type stuff. And I think that's really cool. This match was stressful. It wasn't stressful in terms of the action, but it was stressful in terms of Eddie Kingston and Ortiz not necessarily being on one accord. Of course, they've been sort of, second guessing each other and their loyalty to each other. And the Kings of the Black Throne were playing on all of that. Of course, this was Buddy Matthews and Brody King. They were playing on all of their insecurities, and they did put up a good fight. Of course, Kingston and Ortiz were, being tough boys as they usually are. There were hard bumps, all kinds of, just shots going around and everything, hitting each other, kicking each other, all of the things. But this match was interrupted by Julia Hart and Buddy Matthews when they came down there to the ring with a chair, but then Eddie Kingston cut them off. But then Hart pretended like Kingston was going to hit her with the chair, which made Ortiz mad because he's a gentleman and he feels like, no matter what, no matter how mad they make you, you are not supposed to hit a woman. And I actually appreciated that. But at the same time, Ortiz got in his face about it, and Eddie Kingston was like, I wasn't going to hit her, shut up. And this distraction allowed for Malachi Black to actually kick him in the face with the black mask. I'm only calling it the black mask because that's the name that I know it by, not because, I'm being disrespectful, but he hit him with the black mask in order to win the match. And this made them upset. Eddie Kingston and Ortiz really are upset at each other, and it looks like their friendship might be over for the time being, of course, until they talk things out. But I thought this was just really sad. Because Eddie Kingston and Ortiz really looked like they were cool with each other. Now it looks like they're over with. Also, if I can just say one more thing, I hate that JR, and I love JR and I respect him and everything he's done for commentary, especially in the 90s and stuff like that, and everything he's done for the wrestling business. But can we please go without calling women Jezebels? It's rooted in grossness, and I just don't like it. Like every time Julia Hart comes out, it's like they call her a Jezebel and all these other names, that are just rooted in anti-womanism, and I just don't like it. I don't like it. I really don't like it. Anti-feminism actually is the word. I don't like it at all. But the Kings of the Black Throne wound up winning. So that's pretty much what they did. Okay. And his barbecue sauce industry. Yes, of course, him and his barbecue sauce. I respect that as well. I respect everything JR has ever done. But what I just don't respect is just him consistently calling Julia Hart a Jezebel and all this, and all the women who are negative who just so happen to be heels Jezebels. Like, stop it. It's just rooted in something just really gross, and I just hate it. But moving forward with the rest of the show, we heard from Golden Globe winner Paul Walter Hauser. Now, there are probably a number of people who wonder why this happened. He was on Dynamite, and they were probably wondering why this dude is on Dynamite. But as it turns out, since he won a Golden Globe for his role in a TV show, I believe it was either a TV show or a movie on Apple TV, he made reference during his victory speech at the Golden Globes this week. He made a Get the Tables reference. So he decided to come on AEW because he's a really big fan of AEW and wrestling as a whole. And so he came, and I know the first movie I ever saw him in was actually Cruella. And that was probably the first movie I saw a little bit after the pandemic when I went back to the theater for the first time. And that's what I recognized him from. But I think it's really cool that he went on to win a Golden Globe. Like, that's amazing. A lot of amazing, talented people won Golden Globes this week. Like, seriously, it was amazing. And I'm glad that he was one of them. So he basically came on the show and talked with Renee, because him and Renee have, are really good friends. And he talked about, how he would be more likely to come to AEW before he would go to Connecticut. And I was like, oh my God, the shade. But he said he was just really happy to be there. And and then as he showed everyone his Golden Globe, he got interrupted by Danhausen, and then after that point, there were other people who came out along with to interrupt him that were Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett. And Paul Walter Hauser really roasted Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal. He basically said that Jeff Jarrett looks like a person who looks like a woman who owns a Crunch Fitness. And he roasted the rest of them and said that they all look like they're dressed for a homeschool prom. And I was like, damn, just let Paul Walter Hauser write promos. Just let him write promos. But either way, he got attacked by all of them. And it was just really sad to see him get attacked like that. And then they stole his Golden Globe. And I was just like, how dare y'all steal this man's Golden Globe that he worked really hard for? Give it back. But I'm more than sure something else will come of this. But either way, I thought it was pretty entertaining and funny for the most part. JD is saying Paul Hauser used to come into my old job years ago. Super nice guy. Oh, that's great. He seems like he's a nice guy. Joseph is saying this was dumb. This was Tony Khan trying to get mainstream coverage. Well, here's the thing. That may be true. But it seems that Tony Khan has a tendency to try to do that a lot. He brings in celebrities and stuff because he even brought in when Swerve Strickland and of course the Mogul affiliates had their promo backstage, he brought in the Combs, kids, Sean Puffy, P. Diddy Combs, and his children. He brought them in, for that stuff. So it's just like, if he brings in celebrities for it, it's kind of no different than how WWE used to do it or usually does it every now and again. So it's really no different than that. So I wasn't opposed to it because any celebrity that outright admits that they love wrestling, sure, welcome, come on, I don't care. That's just kind of how I feel about anyone who likes wrestling. But definitely if they're a celebrity and they say they like wrestling, welcome to the club. But yeah, Paul Hausen, yes, that was cool too. But moving towards the main event, we had Jericho Appreciation Society's Anna Jay.A.S and Tay Melo versus Ruby Soho and Willow Nightingale in a street fight. And this fight ate in terms of its brutality. These women fought down. I was scared low-key for Ruby Soho though, because she got cut and she was bleeding all over the place and she just kept bleeding and I was like, oh my god, is she gonna make it? Please don't pass out. But either way, this match was really brutal and it was really great. Anna Jay.A.S and Tay Melo kind of had a little bit of the upper hand here because they of course have participated in a street fight before. And they bragged about it a whole lot, in the promos leading up to it. But Ruby Soho, almost said Ruby and Soho, Lord, I'm sorry. Ruby Soho and Mama Willow really brought the fight to them, and they had and of course they all had matching outfits. But I love Ruby and Willow's because it was really giving Dudley Boys, and I liked that. I was just like, okay, then that's cute. I like that. And Willow actually smashed Anna Jay through a table. Tay Melo smashed Ruby Soho through a table. They were utilizing like freaking barbed wire and thumbtacks towards the end. Like it was really brutal. I was almost scared for Willow because she's such a beautiful girl. I was afraid her face was gonna get messed up, but it actually didn't, and it was more so of her chest that had cuts on them from the barbed wire. Like they really did take it to each other. It was insane. But Ruby Soho and Willow Nightingale actually came out with the win after Ruby slammed Tay Melo into the thumbtacks and actually slammed herself into the thumbtacks. But either way, it was really brutal. I suggest you go back and watch it. It was a great women's main event to also coincide with the main event going on Impact Wrestling involving Mickie James and Jordynne Grace. I thought it was interesting because I was watching both of those matches at the same time. And I was just like, oh my god, women's main events going on, yay. But yeah, you can never have too much women's action here at Women's Wrestling Talk. This was a really good match. I enjoyed it. It was very brutal. I know a lot of people feel a way about brutal matches like this, especially whether men or women do it. But I love it when women do it because it's just so rare. So when it does happen, it just sort of puts women on equal footing with the men. And I actually like it when they participate in brutal street fights like this. Yeah, I really did like it, and I suggest you go back and watch it. JD saying Ruby and Willow look like a fun pairing since they have a colorful and punky vibes. Yes, definitely. Joseph says I was scared Anna might have been hurt when she went through the table. She missed the table and hit her head on the floor. Yeah, I did see that. She did hit the floor, and it felt like Willow kind of took most of the table. But there's no dissing, that spot because either way, that still took a lot of bravery to do to jump off a stage onto a table like that. JD, I did not watch. I only watched. Okay, I didn't watch 3 full events. I watched SmackDown. I watched all of SmackDown. I watched all of Rampage, and I only watched the women's match on Hard to Kill. That was it. I only watched Mickie James versus Jordynne Grace because of course I just didn't want to overdo it with all the wrestling that I was watching, and because I wanted to support Mickie and Jordynne because I've met both of them on separate occasions. So I really did want to be supportive, and if this was going to be Mickie's last match, which I won't, go into here, I wanted to be able to see it because I just love them both so much. Mickie James has blessed my life on two separate occasions. I haven't really well, I don't know if I've talked about it on here, but I met, of course, Mickie James on NWA Empower Weekend, and did an interview with her, which is up on our YouTube channel, on Women's Wrestling Talks YouTube channel. If you haven't watched that, please do. And I also met her again at Alabama Comic-Con last summer. And she came to my fan table for the Hardy Wrestling podcast, and we had a little bit of a moment with her, Trish Stratus, and Lita, where I was sitting on a stage and asking them a question because Trish remembered that I hosted a podcast when I met her at the meet and greet section of the Comic-Con, and we had a moment. So yeah, there's that. And then I've also commentated for Jordynne Grace's two of Jordynne Grace's matches at the Belladonna division here in Gaston, Alabama too. So I kind of had a connection with those two. So I just wanted to support them. However the match went, I just wanted to support them because Impact's women's division is lit. The Knockouts division is really lit, and I just wanted to support them in it. So I watched one women's match and two whole shows. But yeah, that's just what I was doing. But yeah, this women's street fight was really good, and that's where Rampage ended. That was the main event of Rampage. So yeah, this week was really crazy in wrestling, guys, but at least we got through it, huh? We got through it, and it's just the second week, like in January, but either way, we got through it. We got through all the craziness. So thank you guys for joining me on this after show for SmackDown and Rampage, which comes on every Friday night at 10:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, 11:30 Eastern Standard Time. So if you're watching this and it's like 12 o'clock, oh my God, God bless you. Thank you for watching it this late. And of course, please know that you can follow us here at Women's Wrestling Talk. Well, before I get to that, let me just say you can follow me, your girl Stephanie Hardy, on Instagram and Twitter at Queen Steph Hardy. And you can follow the Hardy Wrestling Podcast and listen to it everywhere you get your podcasts. And of course, follow it on Twitter at Hardy Wrestle Pod. And also follow the Hardy Wrestle Podcast on Instagram at Hardy Wrestling Podcast. There's lots of cool stuff going on my end. I'm still recording new episodes. I'm also the sole sponsor for a match at Battle Club Pro's Welcome to New York event, which is taking place next Saturday, even though I won't be able to make it. I'm sponsoring the Sir Wilkins versus Simon Miller match. And yes, you heard that right. Simon Miller from What Culture will be fighting Sir Wilkins of the Jobber Tears podcast. So if you're in New York, please, check that out. Please go watch that match. And yes, I'm the sole sponsor for it. So please, support them and give them all the love that they deserve, because Battle Club Pro really gives amazing shows. So please support them. And also check out my new news article that I wrote for Women's Wrestling Talk on the website www.talkpod.com on the way that fans reacted to Mercedes Moné not being at Dynamite this week. So please check that article out, and also check out my other articles on Stephanie McMahon in the top 5 moments, as well as Carmella and Zelina Vega. Please check those out. I'm budding as a writer, y'all. It's getting cracking. But yeah, just check that out. Check out all the things that we've got going on. Follow Women's Wrestling Talk on Instagram and Twitter at WWTalkPod. Check out our website, like I said, on www.talkpod.com. Check out all of our interviews. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook, and also subscribe to us on Twitch at WWTalkPod. and just check out everything that we have got going on. You can also catch me on the WoW Superheroes After Show on Mondays as well. I know I wasn't on there this Monday, but that was because I was at Raw, because Raw was in my hometown. So I had to go. And shout out to those who actually watched Raw and found me in my Hardy Wrestling podcast sign, because that was just really fun. And I was glad to represent my show on a nationally live show in my hometown. It just meant a lot. So either way, thank you guys for finding me. Those who did find me, thank you. If you didn't, you can rewatch it and maybe find me. Either way, it's cool. But yeah, that's all we've got going on. That's the end of the SmackDown and Rampage After Show on Women's Wrestling Talk, the number one women's wrestling show on the planet. And until next time, bye, y'all. Have a good weekend. It's a long weekend, too. And also, I hope you have a very purposeful and insightful Martin Luther King weekend. Bye, y'all.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the number one women's wrestling show on the planet. Women's Wrestling Talk, the number one women's wrestling show on the planet.